This is a way to use those playing cards to practice tables. So for this game, the example I wanted to show you was to do perhaps your 2 times or your 4 times table. And if you have a look, I'm trying to see if I get my pen up. So for example, for this game, these are the cards I've chosen to use. So you can pick out which numbers might be appropriate for your child. So I've chosen the easier ones. For my pretend child, perhaps would find some of the other ones more tricky. So the ace is the one. And then I'd also use a big number with a multiplication sign. So I'd have my playing cards, 3 copies of the numbers maybe, so I'd got enough to play a game. We'd put them in a pile, we'd have a multiplication sign, and if we were going to use the 2 times table, we'd have a big 2, and we'd take it in turns to turn over a card, and to work out, we either know that times table, or by using other resources, I can't get rid of my pen now, you might use pairs of socks to help them with their counting. If they can't do it themselves, you might choose to use cubes that you'd put together so they've got something to touch and move around. So you'd put those cubes in groups of 2. So you can do the same thing with the 4 times table. So the idea being that you could then get the children, if they're now good at their 2 and their 4 times tables, you might do this over a number of sessions. You might then want to say to them, well, let's record our answers and write them down. And then you can start to look at things like what patterns have we got there? So if you look at this table here, we've got a pretend recording of what the child might have put, and if they've turned over the number 1 and they multiply it by 2, we've got a 2 in the times 2 column. If they multiply it by 4, we've got a 4 in the times 4 column. And you might say to them, well, do you notice a pattern here? What can you see? And you'd hope that they'd be thinking that the numbers in the times 4 are double what they are in the times 2. The other thing that you could get your child to look at would be to use 100 square and to shade in what they came up with from playing the game and what patterns do they notice there. So in the first one here, you can see the blue columns, so it's every other one. In the times 4, you can see that it's not as many. You talk about what that pattern is, and that's all part of building a strategy for knowing your times tables, because not all children are going to be good at that rote remembering, so they need other strategies to help them. So how else could you use this game? You could move on if your child was better at tables and knew more. You could have 2 piles of cards of numbers, so that instead of your times 2 or your times 4, you got those 2 cards you turn and then give your answer for that multiplication. You could turn it around and ask them, well, what's your multiplication? What other times, how you can change it then to using what division facts can you use from this times table fact? So for example, if they did 2 times 2 equals 4, you'd hope they'd be able to come up with 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Because they also need to get that link with division as well. And then to make it a bit of fun, you can make a mistake. Can they pick you up on that? And that's quite useful to do with children who make mistakes, because then they know that you make them as well. And they're not so worried then about making those mistakes.